Hello everyone, welcome back to The Budget Sportsman. Thank you so much for joining me on today's video. Today we are going to be testing my skills to see if I can catch some fish in a survival situation. It was probably about a year ago that I showed you this Bear Grylls / Gerber survival kit on this channel. In that video, one of the things that I mentioned is that I wanted to add some things, and I showed you what I added into this kit to make it a little bit more full-featured. And one of those things was a fishing kit. Now, I realize that sometimes you don't know what will work or will not work until you actually give it a try. And so today I wanted to come out by this stream and actually give the fishing kit a try. Let me show you what we have to work with. What we have in this little baggie is a little bit of fishing line, a few hooks, a swivel, and some split shot weights. What I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the knife out of the survival kit also. There's a small Gerber folding knife, and I'm gonna go cut a limb. That's going to be my fishing rod. I'm going to try to find a nice long green bendable limb to use for my fishing rod. I'll tie on a hook and the line and probably find a small piece of stick to use as a bobber and then go over to the stream and see if we can't catch a fish. Now my idea here is that I want a really long branch because I won't be able to cast like I would be able to with a spinning rod and reel, something like that. So I want something that I'm going to be able to kind of reach out as far as I can into this little pond or bend in the creek over here. So I think I'm going to try to use this big long branch right here and trim it off. But I'm not really sure how sharp my knife is, so let's see if we can get through it. Maybe somewhere right around here where it starts to bend. Okay, well, this tiny little Gerber knife is probably not the best tool for the job, but it does have serrations here, and I was able to get the branch cut off. I've got a nice long branch. So now all I need to do is clean it up a little bit and get ready for fishing. All right, well, I've got this pole all cleaned up. It's really long, probably almost twice as tall as I am, but that's gonna be great because I'm gonna be able to reach out a little bit over into the middle of this little pool that we got here at a bend in the creek. Now, to make this a little bit fair, I did pick a creek I've never fished at before, so I don't have any advantages of where to fish or anything like that. So I came to this creek this morning and I walked up the creek. A lot of it's very shallow and rocky, but I found this place with a little pool. I did catch a glimpse of a fish swimming around, and then also there's like an S-turn here. It turns this way, and a little farther down it turns back again. And down by the next turn, I actually saw a pretty nice sized fish jump. So I think I'm in a good place. Let me get my line put on, and the next thing we're gonna do is go look for some bait. Well, the last thing we need is some bait. I started kicking around at the root of this fallen log here, rotten log, and oops, let him get away, don't let him get away. Got myself a worm. Well, all right, here we go. This is the moment of truth. Oh, wow. Would you believe that? Well, this wouldn't be much to eat, but we did catch us a little fish right off the bat. So at least our method works. Let's see if we can catch anything bigger. Well, guys, that's incredible. The very first cast, within just a few seconds, I caught a fish. Now, it was really tiny, not exactly sure what species it was. If I was truly in a life or death survival situation, you know what? I might have kept that to eat. But for now, we're gonna go ahead and see if we can catch another one, maybe something a little bit bigger, a little bit more worth our time to go ahead and cook up. All right, guys, well, we got a nice fresh worm on, a nice big fat juicy one. Let's see if we can't catch something else. Well, guys, sure enough, fresh worm. Caught another one. I guess it's a creek chub is what these are. But for now, again, we're gonna throw them back. I know there's bigger fish in here. We're gonna see if we can't catch something else. Well guys, one of the problems I'm having is that it seems like I can only fish with a fresh worm. As soon as I throw in a fresh worm, it seems like I'm getting a bite. When I throw back a worm that's already been in the water and had a fish bite it, I'm not getting anything. But the problem is when I go find a worm and I only use a part of that worm, the rest of it gets away when I sit it down on the ground. So I've looked around, found this piece of trash, an old water bottle. What I think I'm gonna do is cut the top off and then use this as a cup to put the worm inside. And hopefully I can keep my worms that way and spend less time going and searching for new bait. Well guys, I got my cup cut off and I was actually having some trouble finding more worms, and I just turned over this rock and I found 3 worms in here, and I got one over there, so I think I've got 4 total. Okay, well I've got a nice big fresh piece of worm put on, and I'm gonna try a new spot over here. Earlier when I was getting set up, I saw a nice sized fish jump out of this little hole just downstream of where we were earlier. So I'm gonna throw this in. Hopefully it'll drift downstream with the current a little bit, and maybe we'll catch a nice one. Well, the minnows are playing with it, but not much else. Well guys, there's been an interesting development. I'd kind of given up on that other spot and decided to just start walking back downstream. And as I was walking along, I just happened to glance over and there is a huge trout right behind that rock. And so I've got to try to catch him. This could mean the difference in a survival situation of going very, very hungry or having a really nice meal. The problem is the water is so clear and he's just right out in the open that I don't know how I'm going to get to him. It's not like I can cast from a distance. So I think what I'm going to do is try to put a bigger hook on, because he's way bigger than the little hook I was using, and try to put as much worm on as I can and come up from behind him as quiet as I can and cast that worm out in front of him the best I can. Wish me luck. I'm sure you won't be able to see this very well, but the fish is right there at the tip of my finger. It's a good trout. Well, that didn't work. The worm even bumped into its nose and it didn't even flinch. So let's try plan B or C or whatever this is. Well, plan B or C or whatever it was to sneak up on it and see if I could actually grab it. And I was actually amazed how close I got. I probably got within 3 or 4 feet of it before it finally took off. For a minute, I thought maybe something was wrong with it or it was dead. I think it was just sleeping. I got close and also, boom, and you can actually hear a noise as it rushed through the water. And it went up a little farther into that hole. So I may wait around a bit and try again. I don't know. We'll have to see how much time we have. Hey everyone, I'm back home now, and I wanted to share with you some lessons learned from the day. Obviously, the day didn't go as planned because I really had hoped to catch a trout or maybe some kind of a panfish that would be suitable size for eating. And obviously, as you saw, that didn't happen. As I mentioned earlier, in a life or death situation, a true survival situation, I probably would have kept those small creek chubs. There would be very, very little meat on, but you know, in a survival situation, every calorie might count. And so I probably would have kept those fish. And so in that sense, today was a success. But beyond just that, there were several other lessons that I learned that I want to share with you that might be helpful if you're ever in a survival fishing situation or if you want to set up a fishing survival kit of your own. Number one is how you store your fishing kit in your survival gear. Basically, at the start of the day, I didn't show this, but I spent a long time untangling my line because how I had it stored just was a mess. And so before I restock my survival kit with some fishing line, I definitely need to consider a better way to store it and wrap it up so that it's not going to be a tangled mess when it comes time to use. If you have any ideas of how I can do that, please help me out. Leave a comment down below. Second lesson learned today was don't have too much line in your kit. Number one, that will help you not be tangled, but also I didn't really want to cut it because I didn't want to waste the line. I wanted to make sure I had a long piece of line. And so, I don't know if you noticed in the video, but I actually had a lot of line wrapped around the bottom of my pole, and then it went up to the pole and then down into the water. I probably could have made do with easily half or even less than half of the amount of line that I had. Really, the way I was doing it today, there's not much way that you can cast it out at some great distance. The more line you have, because you can't reel it up, it's laying around on the ground when you do pull a fish in. So honestly, I think you're better off with less line. Probably, 10 to 15 feet of line is probably going to be plenty. I think I originally had 30 to 40 feet of line in my kit. So I'm probably going to cut that down a little bit, get a right size of line, get a good way to store it and put it in my kit. Another thing that I wanted to point out to you is when I had that big trout, and you saw that I tried to sneak up on it, that was me just kind of having fun. As I mentioned, when I threw the worm in, it drifted down perfectly and actually bumped right into that trout's nose, and it did not even flinch. But what that made me realize is if I was in a survival situation, I probably would have tried to snag that fish with a hook. You can call it foul hook, whatever you want to call it, but I would have actually tried to snag it just by dragging the hook across its body. Now in Pennsylvania, that's illegal, and therefore I didn't try it today. But again, in a survival situation, I would certainly have tried that instead of trying to sneak up on the fish. Probably I would have tried a number of things before I did anything to try to spook it out of that area, maybe even come back to that area later in the day. Another thing that I wanted to point out is that I burned a good bit of energy today looking for bait, moving up and down the creek looking for different places to fish. And there came a point in time in the day when I realized that fish just weren't nibbling on the worm anymore, they just weren't biting, I wasn't catching anything. And in a survival situation, probably the thing to do would have been to conserve energy during the heat of the day when fish just aren't going to bite, at least in the summertime in Pennsylvania, and conserve energy until later in the afternoon when fish are probably going to start biting again. It's just not going to be worth it to burn all of that energy and maybe get one fish that's not even going to replenish the energy that you burned. And so that was something that I don't know that I had really thought of before, but would certainly be something that would be good to consider if you were in a survival situation. Anyways, I know this video is a little different than what I normally do. I hope you enjoyed it, and I honestly think that sometime in the future, maybe next year, I'm going to revisit this and try again to do it all the way through with the Catch, Clean, and Cook. If you would like to see that, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought of this video, and until next time, remember to get off YouTube and get outdoors into God's great creation.